The topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the host and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
To Triversity Talk. I am Wendy Stewart, but you all know that already, those of you who tune in with us every single week. I hope everybody is having a good week. I can't believe that Christmas is on Sunday. My gosh, and Hanukkah was this week, and Kwanzaa, and all these holidays are coming fast and furious. And my gosh, so is a snow bomb that is hitting all over the country. We do broadcast nationwide. So wherever you are, if you're in those states that are really going to be hit, like the Dakotas and the Midwest, please be careful when you're out there. And I hear Florida is going down to 50 degrees. So for all of you in the Florida area, I guess you're going to have to put your heat on. Something we in the Northeast have gotten used to. So tonight, before we get going with our amazing guest, I want to give a shout out to the person that does all of the aggregating of the LGBTQ articles on our website and on our Facebook page. If you go to Triversity's page on Facebook, we have wonderful articles from LGBTQ Nation and from The Advocate and The Guardian, and that is Mary Weber Krause. She put one up that this is what I love about what she does. The news has gotten so filtered these days. We're not hearing a lot of the things that we should, and we are not hearing a lot of the things that affect the community. She put an article up yesterday that I didn't even know happened. I'm based out in New York City, and one of our council members here, Councilman Block, went to a beautiful drag story hour that was presented in Chelsea for autistic children, and he was stalked after that. They wrote things on the pavement outside of his apartment. They tried to break into his office. I don't know for sure who the they are. You can find out more about it if you go to our Triversity page on Facebook. But just the fact that something like that, it just happened in New York City, tells me that things are not all that safe out there. So we really need to all look out for each other and certainly share news like that. Now, I mentioned that we have a snow bomb coming to the United States right now. It makes you think of all the people that have nowhere to live. They don't have shelter, and many don't have family. Some of those people suffer from mental illness. And when we use the term homeless, right, it's very, very broad-based, but we don't put a face on those people. I'm very excited about tonight's guest. Karen Haycox is the CEO for Habitat for Humanity, and she's truly a visionary and a leader who is deeply involved in LGBTQ causes and the housing communities. She's worked for the Stonewall Community Development, and she has really dedicated her work to providing safe and affordable housing, which is very much needed right now in the country. She works out of New York City and Westchester County. A warm round of applause for Karen Haycox.
Wow, what an introduction. Thank you, Wendy.
Well, you know, it's all true. And then I could have just gone on and on with everything else that applies to you. So thank you so much for taking the time to be here. I would imagine this is such a crazy busy time of year for Habitat for Humanity.
It's, you know, I think it's always kind of a crazy busy time. I mean, we're even in spite of the weather that comes in, you know, we're focused on providing housing for families 365 days a year. We're doing, we're either in some form of planning, building, marketing, selling, partnership with the families, talking about the work, elevating the work of affordable housing. Habitat for Humanity is nationwide. We're in 70 countries around the world. And my little corner of that kingdom is in New York City and Westchester County. And I'm just honored by the work that I get to do, what I get to do for work every day. So,
well, my gosh, thank you first of all for being honored, and all the people that you're helping. The housing situation, I don't have to tell you, just seems to be getting worse and worse to get affordable housing for people. And it seems it was a big game changer during the pandemic that things got a lot worse really quickly. Am I correct in saying that?
I think that's right. I think whenever any kind of disaster hits, whether it's a natural disaster like Superstorm Sandy or Hurricanes
Right.
Katrina and Rita, or the pandemic, it's always the most vulnerable among us who suffer the most. And so Habitat's focus is really on the provision of, our sweet spot is really affordable home ownership. Housing is a continuum, right? There's many interventions where we can seek to house people. Our focus area is affordable home ownership, and that's really providing a hand up to families who can't reach a market solution. They can't afford a conventional mortgage, and yet they make enough income that they don't qualify for subsidy. So It's kind of a sweet spot. And where we work is at the crosshairs of decades of racist housing policy, unjust housing policies, et cetera, that have really marginalized primarily people who identify as people of color, from and keeping them out of the affordable home ownership market. Home ownership is our focus area in New York City. We do seek to really elevate other communities. We have a project on our books, for instance, that is very near and dear to my heart, which will be home to more than 122 LGBTQ seniors, including some formerly homeless seniors. And so we try, I believe fervently in an organization like Habitat for Humanity. We're very, I mean this as modestly as possible. We're fairly well known, and I think to whom much is afforded, much is expected. And so we try and do as much as we can with everything that we have to elevate the cause of housing in our market. So you're 100% right.
But I can't help thinking, the housing crisis, right? The homeless crisis. You must be inundated with families, people, and I want to get to LGBTQ seniors because that's a whole different category unto itself. How do you decide? You must have many more applications than the ability to get housing for all these people.
Yeah, I like to say the story about Habitat for Humanity is, if you've seen one Habitat for Humanity, you've seen one Habitat for Humanity. So when we think of it, we think of a traditional model. Some of my colleagues in smaller markets, nothing we do is simple, but it's a little more clear cut around how a family can apply right directly with the Habitat affiliate and end up in a home. In New York City, we're very partnered with New York City and the Housing Preservation and Development Department at the city. We're very well supported by the state and their housing programs. So with that funding comes a little more complexity as to how you apply for housing. There's a housing portal at the city where anybody in New York City and the 5 boroughs of New York City can actually make application for affordable housing, whether it's rental, whether it's affordable home ownership. Our programs fit in that portal. And so what we do is we spend a lot of time on grassroots marketing in and around the neighborhoods where we're building to allow people who live in those neighborhoods to make application through the portal and qualify for housing in New York City. It's a partnership model. So that's the thing that we stand behind our slogan, which is really a hand up, not a handout. So the families that we partner with are part of that process and repay a low interest mortgage so that money can then cycle and help to fund future housing.
It is really incredible work and very much needed. LGBTQ seniors, I've had this discussion with people. They're your standard assisted living or nursing home or where elder care is given. It's not LGBTQ oriented. So what happens to somebody? Is there something being developed? Is there housing being developed for someone that is LGBTQ?
Well, we have, yes, I think it's very much, we're very much, I identify as a gay woman, and so I refer to this as my community. So I'm particularly proud of a project that we're focused on. And when you think about the senior population, particularly low income seniors and particularly homeless seniors, and it does happen, it's terrible, heart wrenching, heartbreaking. Um, and then you think about people who have lived as LGBTQ in the LGBTQ communities all of their lives.
Their
And
life.
if they're fortunate enough to get into any kind of low income housing, they're often forced back into the closet, based on who's surrounded by them. There's a lot of prejudice, as we all know, a lot of
Absolutely.
discomfort. So you don't know, so it puts LGBTQ seniors in a terrible position. They need the housing, they need the roof over their head, they have little or no choice about where they are, and now they're being mistreated by their neighbors or by others in the community.
Well,
So
just ostracize the ability, what the sense of community is, right?
yeah,
And then all of a sudden you're put into housing, you need a roof over your head, but there's nobody there that you have anything at all in common with, no history, no connection on an emotional level or any kind of level.
imagine how that feels. So and
It's
you're really
isolating.
so. Listen, this is new for Habitat for Humanity, and I'm really proud of the work that we're doing to try and get this building up and so that it will become home. But there are other organizations in our city that do this work. Sage, you're probably familiar
I'm
with.
very familiar with
They've
wonderful.
developed two major multifamily LGBTQ senior developments in our city. We're working very closely with our partners, Penrose. They've developed LGBTQ senior housing. They have a number of projects in so many cities now. I'm not sure I can name them, but they have a very well-known one in Philadelphia. Anderson Housing, I believe it is. I've been there. I've toured it as a kind of a glimpse as to what our Haven Green project will look like, and it's so it's so heart. It does your heart good. You walk through there and you see
Right.
these vulnerable people who they're safely housed in an appropriately sized apartment. They can express themselves. They're safe in their neighbors. It's incredible work, and I'm honored
It's
to be a part of ours.
incredible work.
Yeah.
Do you feel that this work may be challenged going forward in lieu of the political environment that we've been in right now?
I think that I think I think that we all know that this is a tough political environment.
Right.
And so Habitat for Humanity prides itself on working across both sides of the aisle. We will work with anybody who is committed, like we are, to providing simple, decent, and affordable housing. And so we will always use our voices, use our brand, and advocate for good, sound housing policy that helps to support the work that we do and the work that our colleagues in the housing sector do. I think that we've had some really good wins under the Biden administration, just some tremendous
Yay.
wins. Senator Schumer in the New York area, we just
That
received
humor
some
is great.
we just received some great news on a project that we're building that is in our pre-production pipeline, on our pre-development pipeline rather, in Brooklyn, has made a significant commitment to that project, which will be tremendous. So there's a lot of really good work coming currently. And we're always looking for better, more stable sources of funding to build more housing for more vulnerable communities,
Right.
right? And so housing is a continuum. So if we're focused at home ownership, and families move into home ownership, that frees up subsidized rental that can move people can move up, and then you start to pull people out of the shelters and off the streets, right? So we think of it really as a continuum, and we try and do our
It's
part.
almost like dominoes, right? It's
Yeah.
like, and I, when you were talking continuum, in my head, I was trying to think what you meant. And now that you have given that example, that is exactly what it is. The goal being to get people out of the shelters.
Yeah, think about the role that home plays for all of us. I
Oh
mean,
my
we all
gosh.
have complex stories about home, but when you think about, there's nothing that makes me sort of smile more than when people say to me, "Oh, I love the work that you do, Karen, but I support educational causes, or I support health causes, or
That's
I
great.
support art, or I support children's causes, or I support, health, or anything. And so much of that starts right with where we call home. And
Right.
these it's especially in high cost, densely populated markets. These families and these individuals are forced into unconscionable choices where they're sharing, because of the high cost, they're sharing cramped
Easy.
spaces with people they
Right.
don't know. Sometimes it's unsafe. The dwellings are unsafe. They're unhealthy. They're incredible distances away from where they make their living. So it's just it's a very complex topic, and one that I have been very blessed to spend a good deal of my career focused on, and also getting to see the results. And in my head, I've got a litany
I
of
think
these faces and places, right?
being able to see those results is, is also everything. I know you started out in film and TV production.
I
This,
did.
this is like, a right turn path somewhere along the way. And that's quite a story unto itself. The world of TV and film production is everybody's happy, everybody's beautiful, um, especially in commercials, right? No one's homeless in a commercial. Everyone looks great. Oh, they have
Right.
gorgeous cars too, but it's the fantasy. So you went from a world where, and I'm not putting it down, I spend time in that world, I earn my living in that world, but it is a fantasy. And then I think of what you do now, and I think of my friends who are rent stabilized of a certain age, and they're freaked out because they're artists and they could lose their apartments at any time.
Right.
So this is something people are really being forced to deal with on such a huge level nowadays. How did you go from where you started in Canada to where you are now?
Yeah, it's an interesting.
Enough time for all of it.
Yeah, exactly. The Karen Haycox, the miniseries. So the
Part one.
yeah, exactly. Listen, I always wanted to be in film and television. I think, and you just heard me use the term pre-production a minute ago.
Yeah.
It's what once a producer, always a producer. I
Pre-pro,
still call
right,
it, I call it gaffer tape instead of duct tape. So there are things that stick with you. Even these many years later. I spent many years in film and TV in Toronto. I loved it. I very much identified as a producer. I still probably do. I got downsized in an agency merger. Fast version, long story. I was producing Keeping the World a Safe Place for Brown Fizzy Drinks and Bright Shiny Metals. I won't say the name of the brands, but you can imagine I produced
Right.
commercials. And I got downsized in an agency merger. And so through a circuitous turn, ended up doing executive recruitment. I love this part of the story because a friend of a friend said to me, all I know about you, Karen, is, in film and television, all you talk about is putting the right people and resources against a project. I want you to consider, as an alternative, come and do executive recruitment for me and find the right people for a business. So I ended up doing some recruiting. And during my research on one of my prospects, he was the chair of the local habitat board in Windsor, Ontario, Canada. And so I sent him a couple of resumes and said, I know you're the chair of Habitat. I was 100% focused on trying to recruit for his company. I was less interested in Habitat. This was very selfish. It was business oriented of me. I wanted to recruit for him. Because he was the chair of the local Habitat, I saw this one resume come in and I thought, I'm going to try, right? They ended up hiring the resume, and when he went to when they made the hire, when they wanted to make the offer, I said, well, we'll waive our recruitment fee because we're happy to help the community. Again, selfishly looking beyond that to his corporate stuff. And he said, no. He said, we're going to pay the finder's fee. But he said, Karen, I really want you to consider being on the board of my local Habitat. And that's how it started in 1999. And I have been since. I started my first job as an employee, employed by Habitat in 2000. So here we are 22 years later.
Here we are. I want to go back to what you were talking about, the downsizing and what happens to a person when they fully identify. And I've been there myself. Okay. It started during the pandemic, lost my biggest client that I had for a really long time. And it's a big brand you would know, and tossed away like garbage, right? All of a sudden your identity is caught up in it, who you are, where you go every day, the people that you talk to, and all of a sudden it is like a rug and it is ripped out from underneath you. where does that put one's psyche when that happens? You know, this for you, right? You had you owned it producing commercials, okay? And you know the world that comes with it. I would imagine that the world just blew up.
Yeah, you have some dark days, right? It's
I
like
have
if my life is over. I was 30 something years old and I thought everything that I ever wanted to be was wrapped up. My identity was wrapped up in what I did for work. And you know, so I don't want to downplay it. It was a really dark time in my life, and I just couldn't find my way out of it. I credit, you know, the people that were around me, my friends that just kind of kept me going. And I
you had
think,
friends that
and
kept you afloat.
and I think, you know, I had this sort of mantra that came to me around just take the next right step. And sometimes the next right step is just getting up in the morning and brushing your teeth and you
That's
know,
the hard. That can
washing the
sometimes
dishes. Yeah.
getting out of bed and doing that, right? When you had everything that you worked for, what you aspired to, something that you had focused on, right? You were so encompassed in this world.
Yeah.
All right.
In some ways in
Yeah,
some
what are
ways
you
it's
saying?
in some ways it's just saying yes. You know, I think about getting this job as a professional recruiter. I can remember so clearly driving out of Toronto and thinking, I will be right back. Like I have no clue why I'm taking this. But I need, I mean, this paying the rent is a big
Yeah.
serious driver, right? But I think it was just, you know, a friend of mine used to say, what are you waiting for? Like a burning bush, just do the thing. You know,
Right.
if it's offered, take it. If you hate
Right.
it, you don't have to stay. You're not signing on for life. And so I just sort of I took this opportunity 100% believing it was short term. And
Right.
it turned out to be, honestly, Wendy,
It's your
it
new
was
path.
changed. It started me into the road. Everything that I imagined I would love and enjoy, like sort of the celebrity pizzazzy kind of stuff. I
Right.
have done more of that under the Habitat for
Ah,
Humanity banner than I ever did as a producer, and including, you know, we built 47 houses for Hurricane Katrina in the outside of Rockefeller Center, live on the Today Show 5 mornings a
love it.
week. I had an
Right.
Executive pass to the elevator. I went going up the elevator with Katie Couric, and I'm thinking, oh my God, I'm
And I'm
Mary Tyler
so
Moore, you
lucky
know?
because- right.
Yeah, like I'm Mary Tyler Moore. That's who I wanted to be, and all of that
Nothing
was,
happened.
and the inside job. Like I can joke about the celebrity, but what's important is for me about Habitat for Humanity, and it's absolutely the communities that we work with and the people we serve.
Right.
Happiness for me and feeling fulfilled is an inside job, and I feel I am so grateful that I get to be in the middle of this sort of modern day miracle
It
that
is
I
it is a miracle. I'm
yeah,
really glad that you
yeah,
called it that because it is a miracle.
yeah, yeah.
Well,
So
that-
it's very rewarding. So, you know, if you're out there and you can't find your footing and you're waiting for the next big gig, you know, I think the my best guidance is what my friend told me. Just take the gig, take the thing, take the job, try it out. You don't know, you know, do the next right step. You don't know where that will lead. I could never have dreamed that I would end up with Habitat and that I would feel as fulfilled by it as I did as a producer. So
Right. And you're talking also, you had to uproot from Toronto. So you had to leave your comfort. You know, there's a lot to be said about being able to leave your comfort zone. I'm
yeah,
not great at that, by the way. I've been in the same apartment in New York City for 22 years and
I'm
I'm
pretty
living
good at that.
on the weekend for 22. I'm not good at that. I personally am working more on upsetting my apple cart a little bit, you
Yeah.
know, and with what your friend said, you don't wait for the burning bush.
You don't wait for the burning bush. Just take this, take the thing, try the thing. Let's see where it leads, right? Follow the trail of breadcrumbs, see where it
Like,
leads.
right, right, the Hansel and
Yeah.
Gretel trail of breadcrumbs. Now, did you have this tenacity to your personality growing up?
Okay, you know, if my mom and dad were still around, they probably would say yes, you know. And I used to say to them all the time, you know, you raised me. I don't know, but certainly I was an only child. Does that help? So I felt very, I was probably significantly precocious. I just always, my parents, I always knew that I was loved. I very fortunate. And they gave me, they didn't always buy into my choices. They didn't always support my choices, but they really truly loved me. I knew that. And I think there's power in that. And I recognize there's privilege in that not everybody, specifically in my community, they have complex familial relationships, right? But I knew my parents loved me. And so I think they gave me a voice, they gave me a seat at the table. I was dragged around with them, as only children often are, into adult scenarios. So I was always.
I have a child, and that's what we've done with ours. So she's a very old person at 30. Even.
I credit my parents. I used to think, when I got involved in nonprofit work, people would say, how did you come to this work? And at first, I don't know that I really saw the fullness of the story, but when I think about my mom and dad, they got involved in Special Olympics when it came to my town. They belonged to community civic groups. We were doing, sort of Christmas events and food banks. And
so you grew up with that sense of advocacy and trying to help people.
Yeah, exactly. And it took me a while to actually see the fullness of how the seeds that they'd planted. Right. And super, super grateful.
But it's funny. I listened to one interview where you said you didn't say you want to be an actress. You were going to be a movie star.
Oh yeah.
Right? Yeah. That's not just an actress. You're going to be a movie star. You're going to own it.
It's probably that probably is a big story big statement about who I was or believed I was as a kid. Yeah. I think that I always wanted to be in television and film. And as I said, when I was a kid, my mom used to say that I always wanted to be a movie star. And she said that, and we both said, it's very different than saying you want to be an actor.
Absolutely.
I didn't seem to want to do the work, but I was happy to have the fame.
You wanted the accolades. You wanted the title.
Yeah, that wasn't to be my gig. But certainly,
what was it about the world of TV and film that spoke to you so much?
It's an interesting thought. I think when I think about some of the projects that I've done, I used to liken it to perpetual school, because I was a producer often on some documentaries. I did some second unit stuff.
Yeah.
So there's a perpetual learning component to that, totally making this up, but if I'm doing a video on how to fix a lawnmower engine, there's a learning component to that, as if I'm doing a video or a documentary on, on a science, some piece of science or nature or something. There's considerable learning that goes with that, which I absolutely loved. I think, and it gives you a comfort level in traveling, to be seated at the table with whoever is there. And I think that has really served me well. I mean, I have been afforded many privileges in this position. I've sat at the table with former presidents and with music stars and movie stars and people who make less than $2 a day. And
really, such a big range of people.
But we're all more. I really believe in my core, and this is hard to hold on to in this current political environment.
Yeah.
We are all more alike than we are different. When I think about families in India or families in Vietnam, and I think about some of those families that I got to drink tea with and break bread with, they have the same aspirations for their children that we do. They have the same desire for safety and sanctuary that we all do, for friendship and family, wherever we find it, that we all do. And so in this terribly conflicting political environment that we're in, that has probably been my saving grace. Although anybody who knows me well knows that I have lost that plot a little bit over the past couple of years. But it really, I do believe it to my core that we are all more alike than we are different.
That is in your core. And I was at a fundraiser for Kakuma 13, which I'm sure you're aware of what's happening. That's in Nairobi. It's an LGBTQ community in Kenya. And there's terrible things that have happened there. So we did a fundraiser at Stonewall. My producer from my other show, Chauncey Dandridge, spearheaded it. And he had everyone come on live stream that was in this refugee camp. And this really blew me away. And they each introduced themselves and they held up a sign saying who they wanted to be. Okay, I want to be an engineer. I want to be a lawyer. I want to be a doctor. And it's still to this moment, I talk about this all the time because it was on a screen, a big screen at Stonewall, right? Everyone knows Stonewall. Here we are on the other side of the world. These people have absolutely nothing. But at the end of the day, they have the same hopes, dreams, and desires that we do. And I think, you mentioned in the political environment we're all trying to live in, it is very important now. And my biggest platform is getting that out there. We need to start to have empathy in terms of what's going on over there, the other side of the world, the other countries where people are being oppressed. And it will not change until countries like this one and in Europe, we really have to all rise up and say, we're all just people at the end of the day, damn it. And we all deserve the same things. I grew up in school and I remember first grade, every American is entitled to food, clothing, and shelter. That was so ingrained in me. All right. And yet I remember when Habitat for Humanity started, all right, under Jimmy Carter, who I want to talk to you about, and thinking at the time, oh, well, what do we need this for? I'm in America. Everybody had, I was a kid, so you don't know. And that's when it became apparent to me that no, in this country, not everybody had that.
Not everybody has it. No,
everybody has that.
You think about Appalachia and you think about some of the poor rural communities. I mean, simple, decent, affordable housing is a human right. It should be a human right. And it's not everybody's got an affordable place to live.
Right.
So
I mean, for me, if I had my druthers, I don't care what people call me, things would be subsidized. I still believe we're one of the richest countries. And I always say this, the money is there. I know the money's there. And I know the amount of people I know living in New York that don't dip into their pockets. And trust me, they've got millions of dollars and they do so little for charity. How do you put your head on a pillow at night? I mean, the thing that has worked for you so well, you love seeing the outcome. How amazing, Karen, that you're able to do what you do. All right. And you get to see an end product.
Yeah.
Where you actually change someone's life. That's huge.
Happiness is an inside job, and if you're on the days when I have struggled for whatever reason in my life, the things that, I don't want to sound like I'm some kind of guru. I'm not, but I will tell you, that on the days when I struggle the most, what I know to be true is that you reach out and hand to help somebody else and it helps you. And that's the secret, I believe, to happiness and to a good and fulfilling life. And I often say that I sometimes say that the God of my understanding understands that I need to be right in the middle of it. Like I know to my core that you can work at McDonald's and make a difference in the lives of everybody you touch. I know that we can all do that. And I always say, but the God of my understanding puts me in the middle, the higher power that I subscribe to puts me right in the middle of it. So lest I should miss it. And Habitat provides me, and the work that I do at Rainbow Railroad, which of course we're going to talk about, provides me with that. I cannot miss it. I am right in the thick of it. And that helps on dark days. Certainly when they come.
And I guess in terms of living your truth, you've been put there. And if you believe in a higher power, as I do, then you know that you're doing exactly the work you're supposed to be doing.
Yeah, you just take the next right step. Take the next right step, right?
Rainbow Railroad.
Right.
Talk about, now you're on the board of Rainbow Railroad, and talk a little bit, of course, about what Rainbow Railroad does for our listeners.
I will. For those of you who don't know, so I was asked to join the board of Rainbow Railroad 2 years ago, and Rainbow Railroad was founded in Canada, and then it reached out into the U.S. And the focus of Rainbow Railroad is like the Underground Railroad of lore. Right. Rainbow Railroad comes together to try and help LGBTQ persons in countries around the world where their very lives are at risk based on how they identify, who they love, how they just demonstrate their sex and their gender. And so they provide the work that the team at Rainbow Railroad does is unbelievable, helping on an individual, up close and personal basis, individuals being persecuted under threat of death in countries around the world find pathways out of their countries and to
Relocated, right? Mhm.
resettlement into other countries around the world, a small portion of which might be the US, might be Canada, might be France, might be Germany. And it's very difficult and complicated work, and it's very costly work, in that you are literally trying to get people from, like in Afghanistan,
Yes.
we try to get people from places to the airport, onto a plane, through transiting from the plane through other countries to another country.
Yeah, but it's everything that's involved. It's the passport, it's the visa, it's life threatening, both for the person who is trying to get out and the people along the way that are helping them.
That's exactly right.
You
And I
can't
mean,
take anyone to
people are
die.
under threat of death from their families. So we talked
Right.
about the complex relationship that some
So
people have with homes and their family of origin.
Right.
And this and this, but the work that Rainbow Railroad does is truly, truly nothing short of heroic. And the need coming in to Rainbow Railroad is 4x what we are able to reach. So this year we've served something north of 2,500 individuals, helping to get them out of a place where their very lives are in danger.
But there's like 10,000
And there's
applications.
10,000 applications.
Yeah, there's
And
10,000.
yeah, and so it is, I am so moved. Yeah, I love what I do for work. And when Rainbow Railroad approached me, this was a real opportunity for me to really up close and personal be part of my community, making change for other gay people around the world. And
Absolutely.
I am one of a tremendous group of board members in both Canada and the US. And again, big, huge shout out to the staff. I am, like I said, I told you, Wendy, I'm very often right in the middle of the miracle. So I get to
You
see a
are.
lot of great stuff happening, but I sit at those board meetings with Rainbow Railroad, and I am, more than a few times have I been moved to tears listening, not only to the perils of people
Yeah.
whose lives are in threat because they're gay, but also the heroic 24 hours a day work of the program team, who are on the phone with these people in different time zones, trying to calm them down, trying to keep them calm, give them direction, provide them with the inner strength that they need to take the next step as they try and get on planes. There's long periods where there's no return communication from some of these people.
No, you have no way of knowing.
And then and then they're there. And then, and it's just such rewarding work. And so I'm very fortunate. Your friend and mine, we have come together, and when we talk about this work, other gay people often say, "How can I help? How can I get involved?" And very recently, Richard Murray, who we both know and love,
on the show this week. I adore him. Yeah.
If you don't know Richard Murray, and if you are a fan of the 100-Foot Journey, and he's a novelist and just a tremendous gentleman and friend. And Richard said, "I really want to do something," and he wanted to put together a literary festival. Because being a novelist and being a person who makes his living with the written word and storytelling, Richard came up with the idea of putting together a literary festival to benefit Rainbow Railroad, bringing together some authors, a really interesting suite of authors, a poet, right? A poet, an activist, and really with the idea that our stories unite us, our stories save us. That his vision, I believe, is that the people that are being helped by Rainbow Railroad have their stories. The people who are going to be speaking at this literary festival have their stories, and that we're all, again, our stories save us. And so again, I think it's a little bit of an extension of that philosophy that we're all more alike than we're different,
But by having those stories told, I think that the thing that hit me about this festival is not only getting the stories out there. I really believe in the power of celebrity. By that, I mean, when Angelina Jolie did anything, you heard about it, okay? At whatever organization she was working with, or any of the big celebrities, Sharon Stone, when AIDS, all the money she was able to raise, Rainbow Railroad, and I'm very much aware of so many organizations. I had heard about them a little bit, but I want to hear about them a lot a bit. I want to be out there and talk to people in all the organizations I know in New York. And there's so many that I know. There's some I'm involved with. You want it to become a household name, and you want it to become a household name everywhere. And I do believe by having a very high profile festival in a place like New York City, we'll really start to get the word out. Again, Karen, you know, when there was so much persecution going on in places like Iraq, all right, any of the Middle Eastern countries, there were things I was
Egypt,
getting,
Jamaica.
yeah, you start getting these things in, how these terrible things that are happening to people, and the LGBTQ organizations that I know, the people I know, they're like, well, what can we do? They didn't know anything to do. We didn't. You read this stuff, and it's so horrific that a person can be stoned to death, and even just horrific stuff. But we don't know how to help. I think one of the greatest things is now through this festival and raising awareness, creating that pathway. You talk about the pathway. You talk about taking the right turn, creating the pathway for other people to join on, to know that, yes, there is something you can do. But they can't do anything unless they know about the plight of the people that are involved in that.
It's right. That's right. And, you know, I hadn't, until they approached me to be on the board, I hadn't heard about Rainbow Railroad either. And so I did my research, and there have been great stories.
Great story.
60 Minutes picked up a story 10 years
saw the
ago.
episode,
It was a volunteer. It was started by a group of volunteers in Canada. And so they picked that story up. They revisited the story. But, you know, listen, it's a busy news environment that we're in. And so what we know that this literary festival will do is help to elevate awareness of Rainbow Railroad. It'll help to elevate the awareness and the plight that our gay brothers and sisters, and LGBT and trans brothers and sisters around the world are facing every day, just by virtue of the fact that they are drawing breath in some of these countries. They're at risk of death from their families, from their communities. And so to know that there is a lifeline, that there is a mechanism that will help them to find a pathway out. So I'm really excited about what this event will do to help elevate that story, specifically to the authors and the poets and who are going to join us. I'm really excited to hear their stories as well.
Oh yeah, absolutely. How do you have all this energy to work on all of this stuff when many people can only do an inkling of what's your secret?
I think the secret, I think the secret is that it's an inside job, that when like I said, if you want to feel better on the inside, do something for somebody else. Does that make, I like to call that small s selfish. It's like small s selfish. I do this work, this chosen work for my work, and this work as part of my passion outside of Habitat, because it's an inside job. It makes me feel good. It fills me up. It helps me to feel connected to the world outside of me by doing something that serves somebody else. Right. It leaves an impact. We all want to make some kind of lasting impact on the world that we live in. And
well, honestly, I'm going to stop you on that one, because we tend to think, those of us that want to do and want to make that impact, we tend to think other people are that way. And the hard pill that I've had to swallow is not everybody is that way.
Well, lucky us.
Right.
They don't get the secret. The secret is right.
And I have found, like, especially in the last 2 years, I had a woman on my show this afternoon, Laurie Tower, same type of person. We've become like magnets. What's happened to me during the pandemic is I've become like this magnet, attracting all like-minded people, but not only like-minded, they are frustrated by what's happening in the world, and they want to do something. I want to do something. I do these podcasts because my strong suit is talking, interviewing, and getting the word out. I love the literacy festival, the literary festival that you're doing for Rainbow Railroad. Why do I love that? Because it's going to let people know, because people are going to come that night. They're going to network with each other. All right. And something will come from that. I am the optimist. My glass is always full. And yes, I have my dark days also. Sometimes that glass gets a crack in it. I go get some Duco cement and I just seal that crack right up.
There you go.
Because there's always tomorrow.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So I hope that anybody listening to this, go and investigate the work of Rainbow Railroad, www.rainbowrailroad.org. If you're in the New York area, if you're able to come to the New York area, come and join us January 12th at Penn 1. Join Richard Murray as the host. You'll see that he has a really interesting panel of authors and poets and activists. If you know the work of Peter Staley, How to Survive a Plague, Peter tells a great story about the history of our movement, the history of how we got here today and have played such an incredible role. And I hope you'll explore the work of Rainbow Railroad. I hope you'll follow them on all the social media channels, listen to the work that they're doing. We're really engaged in this work around the world. We're at the right tables. We're at the White House. We're in Ottawa, in Canada. We're in London. We're in Paris. We're starting you'll get to hear more and more about Rainbow Railroad. So please check us out.
Yep. And I can't think of a better way to say that. Real quick, because we're getting down to the wire here. I loved Jimmy Carter as a kid.
So do
You've
I.
met him. You've met him.
God. The honor of my life. The best thing I can tell you about President and Mrs. Carter, they are everything you want them to be.
I love that.
It is the honor, honest to God, the honor of my life to have broken bread with him, I build on his actual house when we are building with Habitat for Humanity. And that is the gold medal, let me tell you. You cannot. He is no figurehead. You have to work really hard when you build on his house. And thankfully, I'm a carpenter's daughter, so I can swing a pretty mean hammer.
So you can swing them.
Yeah. He is a gentleman and everything you want him to be.
And he's 95 years old now.
He's 97, I think.
97.
Yeah, I think he's
amazing.
97. I might even be 98. I keep
such a
amazing.
force.
Yeah, he is a force. What a person who leveraged everything that he is to make the world better. And Mrs. Carter.
Rosalind Carter.
Yes, exactly.
Wow. Yeah. We pay homage to her too.
Yeah.
Well, Karen, we have 1 minute left. What would you like to tell everybody? This is your moment.
Oh boy. Well, first, I think I want to end by what I should have said at the beginning, Wendy. What you are doing to leverage your celebrity to help my community, I think can't be understated. And for you to be such an incredible ally and friend to us in good times and in bad, and to say, how can I help, to stand up and say, what can I do to help this work? I mean, what a model you are, and what for others. So, what I would say is join us, do something, and again, the secret that Wendy and I want you to know, it's an inside job. You do something for somebody else and you end up feeling good about it. So
I love that. And don't be waiting for that burning bush.
Don't be waiting for that burning bush. Just do something, do
Karen,
something, get involved.
Wonderful holiday. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you, Wendy. Thank you for everything.
And
join us.
January 12th.
We'll see you January 12th. Looking forward to it.
And good night, everybody. Thank you. Happy holiday.
Happy Merry everything, everybody.
Yay.